Welcome to Slash Forward. Well, we find ourselves back here again, preparing to celebrate Christmas with the ever-looming threat of a demon abduction or falling victim to a serial killer constantly hanging over our heads. But I do like a good, due to a past trauma, man goes crazy for the holidays and unleashes his angst upon society story. So in light of that, we're going to recap the 2012 film Silent Night. A small town that goes hard for Christmas finds themselves rocked by a spree killer going absolutely nuts on various naughty residents, holiday style. As Deputy Sheriff Aubrey Brattamore becomes entangled in the investigation, she finds herself struggling to prove her worth and live up to her hero father's legacy, while also attempting to stay alive as it slowly becomes apparent that this unquenchable bloodlust may be a personal matter. I'm always looking for more Christmas horror to add to my list, so be sure to leave a comment with your favorites. And if you're still in the mood for a little holiday bloodletting, check out my playlist of Christmas-themed horror movies. Or check back next Friday. We're all here every week having a good time. I don't know what you're doing. Let's get to it. We open in a dark and foreboding bathroom, juxtaposed with some whimsical Christmas music playing as a scummy man grooms himself.
Oh, just see what a glorious fill.
With an anonymous woman tied up on a nearby bed, he carefully customizes the perfect visage before suiting up for evening treats. He then enters a basement where there's a man festively secured to a chair. Through the man's protestations, we learn, it seems, that he had been practicing infidelity with the woman upstairs. He begs forgiveness, thinking Santa must be his paramour's husband. While she is not Mrs. Claus, the outcome is unchanged, as the looming brute fakes mercy before sending the full force of the town's power grid surging through his soft pink body. We then wake up on Christmas Eve with Deputy Aubrey Brattamore. She receives a call from Sheriff Cooper letting her know that he's going to need her to cover Deputy Jordan's shift tonight. The young man's been chasing tail, and he's been at it for several days. Or at least they assume, since he hasn't shown up for work. She had been looking forward to moping around all day, this being the first Christmas since losing her husband and all.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to seeing you.
She heads downstairs to wish her father luck in the big Santa pageant at the town square. As a beloved former sheriff, the elder Brattamore stands a good chance of placing in at least the top 3. Why, the tender townsfolk have even taken to sending him gifts, presumably to commemorate his life of service. As the town comes alive, we recognize there are definitely tiers to this Santa game. Aubrey roams the streets so we can meet the good mayor, putting up Christmas decorations the day before. Like half the residents of the town, it seems. His daughter Tiffany has a brief disagreement with him about the town's need for another road as she heads out to work. And then we focus in on a naughty girl, slapping away her mom's heart pills and insisting she be chauffeured to the mall for shopping, rather than to the church for praying, as mommy had hoped.
Go get your purse and meet me in the car.
When she tries to sass talk St. Nick, she suffers immediate consequences that involve taking a stun stick until she goes foamy and then being impaled with a poker. Aubrey makes a quick stop at the church to get her penance on, and Father Madeley looms over her creepily. After announcing himself in an alarming manner, he offers to fill the void left by John with any part of him that she'd prefer. When she finally makes it to the station, she finds it to be fairly empty. The others haven't arrived, so Brenda begins to gossip about Deputy Jordan, who is presumed to have eloped with another man's wife. Giles finally shows up, looking like something the cat dragged in, and spreads his biliousness like holiday cheer. So Aubrey quickly ducks out to address the matter of a drifter Santa who's making children cry. She slices through the bustling town to quickly adjudicate.
Never trust your parents.
What seems more like a customer service issue than a criminal matter. Besides, tucked into the pages of his diary are all the necessary permits for his business. Plus, he's just trying to drop some truth bombs on these sheep. Before she has a chance to charge him with disturbing the peace, she's called away to investigate an unusual smell coming from an abandoned house. Giles can't do it because he's filling out a missing persons report for the husband of Alana Roach, the missing Deputy Jordan's suspected lover. We then transition to a loser grandson relieving his comatose peepaw of his spending money. But then suddenly,
You better watch out, boy.
Peepaw has a moment of lucidity and warns Dennis to avoid Santa at all costs. He then slips back into a catatonic state just in time for his sponge bath, the sly dog. Meanwhile, Aubrey rolls up to the spot and is able to confirm that there is indeed a stench. It seems to get worse the further in she goes, so she pursues that lead into the basement where she finds a Christmas surprise. She tosses Santa's cookies before calling in to identify the corpse of Deputy Jordan, now no longer missing. She then proceeds to clear the house under the suspicion that their other missing person, Alana Roach, may have been with him. She follows the sound of a ringing phone up to the party room, confirming their POI is handless and otherwise generally disembodied. Sheriff Cooper then arrives and begins to feel the anticipation of the hunt broiling below the surface of his skin. As they discuss it further, we find they've already confirmed the alibi of the husband, so are left with little to go on. But that's just how Cooper likes it. He's grown bored in the intervening years of quiet small-town life, and he's looking to pop off for Christmas, boy! The town reveals more of its burgeoning industries as we see that Tiffany has a side hustle as a calendar model and drug enthusiast. She heads out, zapped up and flush with cash as Santy trades places with her. Goldie sets down the camcorder to address a knock at the door and gets the sense that something is off here, but she dies silently. So, with no warning, Frank takes a scythe to the sack as Maria ducks into the bathroom. With few options, she is defenestrated into a pillowy, cloud-like pile of garbage, and then is pursued through various unpopulated environments. Unfortunately, she must stop when the wood chipper winds up. It's just so curious, so intriguing, so rhythmic. But the end result involves her getting fed to the chipper, and feet first at that. They're still working on theories back at the station when the switchboards light up with complaints from all over town. So the sheriff gives them their assignments and they begin their investigations. Here it's revealed that the mother of that young brat is just now calling to report her murder. As Cooper checks this, Aubrey and Giles arrive at the hourly motel, and they all find themselves taking in a lifetime of savage imagery, sure to turn them into grizzled old-timers one day. The scenes are both graced with the presence of fairly large bloody boot prints, as well as the gift of video evidence. Back at the town square, the Coral Skanks are caroling the brains out of the surviving townsfolk, and they're not modest about it. So you know the Reverend's there to snap some creepy photos, and he captures some of the lamest lewds ever conceived. Meanwhile, at the station, the crew gets comfy and settles in for movie night. They fast forward to the juicy parts, but are only able to hear the scrotal bisection before getting jump scared. Pursuant to this, Aubrey calls Giles to tell him to keep his eyes peeled for Santa Claus, which is kind of unhelpful. At the church, the father has prepared a special sermon on the commercialization of Christmas, delivered to a fairly sparse crowd.
When King Herod massacred infants.
And we get some idea why his flock is strayed. Right when he approaches the rapturous crescendo, Santa takes it upon himself to punish the wicked and reward the meek, a true man of the people. Aubrey ventures into the seedy underbelly of the town, hoping to scope out a tall, swarthy Santa up to no good. She spots a potential one, but when she relays the deets to the sheriff, he's confused about his behavior. This Santa is casually eating, which serial killers tend not to do. Regardless, Aubrey approaches him for questioning, and his rude answers really solidify his guilt in her mind. He then regales her with the story of a scorned lover who took to throwing flame on Christmas to get his revenge upon society. He now goes town to town, doing a murder spree every year. And this is surely not an urban legend. Still unsure about her hunch, she calls a number she got at the motel. When Carson's phone rings, he takes off running. She's in close pursuit, but he manages to pin her down in the alley and even get off a little slice before backup arrives. Now, they're really thinking they've identified their prime suspect. After her alleyway failure, she calls her dad to express her concern that she's too sad to be an officer of the law. Papa tries to offer reassurance.
This isn't the first time a Bradamore had to bring down a bad Santa.
The hell does that mean? But these words do give her a renewed purpose, as she tries to take in the evidence again as she doesn't think Carson fits the mold of who they're looking for. However, Cooper is in full commando mode now and focused only on the kill. Essentially on her own, Aubrey heads to her cruiser to quietly review a dossier of Christmas killings state by state. As she does so, she notices that the traveling Santa's diary puts him at one of the murder towns about 5 years back, so they go to toss his trailer. Elsewhere, the mayor's party is now in full swing. Tiffany returns with Dennis and they get permission to go to the guest house to relieve their sexual tension before joining the festivities. But when the mayor gets his neck wrung, with Cooper on the line no less, we know that the killer's not far behind them. Regardless, they have time to enjoy some double entendres before Tiffany steps out to strip down, as is the tradition for the sake of modesty. When she comes back, Dennis then performs the traditional pre-coital jump scare. But then, if he's here, who closed the bathroom door? Well, it was Santa. He deftly throws a long-handled axe and just slices her Achilles before pinning her up against the wall. Dennis is so shocked that Santa is able to get him from behind and then split his face wide open. He offers a brief comfort to Mindy Lou in anticipation of her new life as an orphan before moving on. At the town square, the police are scoping the parade, looking for the traveling Santa, a nearly impossible task in a town where every adult male presents as a Santa Claus. But Aubrey clocks him and they eventually manage to ensnare him. They toss him in the pen, but he doesn't do much more than rant and rave about all the things he doesn't have. And his tirade about the non-idyllic life seems to strike a chord for Aubrey. The thought of him switching from collecting children's wishes to murdering folks shakes her to her core, so Cooper helps her get her mind off it by sending her to see if she can locate Maria, the other girl from the video. She pulls up and notes Carson traveling from one unit to another. Suspicious behavior, so she confronts him. This results in a classic standoff wherein this old mill worker dares her to do something. She opts to refinish the cabinets with his brain matter, a fitting choice for the holiday. And then, upon observance of some new evidence, her beautiful mind draws out the thread connecting each of the crime scenes that evening, ending at the package her parents got that morning. Back at the station, Giles is told to take out the trash on his way home. Once outside, he's drawn to a vehicle that is blasting some music, but appears to have no occupants, a common occurrence in small-town America, except for the part where a pickaxe penetrates his eyeball. Aubrey calls Coop to fill him in as she races home. He is incredulous because, after all, he received a package that morning and he's fine. But then the lights go out and the culprit appears. And despite his bluster, the sheriff is immediately flame-thrown to death. Unfortunately, he had arrived at the station after already finishing at Aubrey's house, as she arrives to discover her father's glistening innards splayed out like a spilled bowl once full of jelly. After confirming Mrs. Claus is okay, she goes to seek her sweet revenge. But she needs to hurry because Brenda is struggling to stay alive. Luckily, she's able to escape into a small empty room they keep for hiding. Right when he's about to open it, the sprinklers kick on. He ends up finding himself near the holding cells where he lets out Bad Santa. Thinking that the man before him must be an axe-wielding officer of the law, Santa Jim engages him in a rumble intended to establish Santa's superiority. In the end, Jim gets his brains mashed up with some holiday brass knuckles. Aubrey arrives and ventures in slowly, observing the remnants of the murder spree. Despite her preparedness, Santa gets the drop on her. However, she is able to rally and thrust into him with the power of her ancestors. This gives her the chance to create some distance, regain her composure, and then get blasted. Eventually, a classic Christmas axe fight commences. He's able to overpower her, but she goes down near his special contraption, allowing her to leverage his only weakness, his own implement of destruction. Afterward, she saves Brenda from the burning building, automatically making them lifelong Secret Santas. In the wrap-up, we see RJ roll up in his work truck looking like an overcooked pizza. Through flashback, we learn that he's the son of the guy from the urban legend, and the elder Bradamore had burned his father up right in front of him, thereby securing his path in life, which he now freely embarks on. And see, this is a good contrast to the irreverent humor from Fright Night. Silent Night is a low-budget cheeser, but it does a lot with what it has. I really appreciate that it seems pretty straight-laced, and then the characters drop some fairly ridiculous lines that seem out of place in the context of the scene, and then it slowly builds itself into more of a horror comedy. It's enjoyable because they're taking both the humor and the horror seriously, so both of them hit the mark. I'd hard recommend introducing this one at your extended family Christmas. Before we go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my donors, memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. Any donation unlocks a growing collection of uncensored movie recaps. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.